And LifeSite News reports Australian bishop allows obscene Hindu demonic idol in a cathedral.
You know, what I think is going to be one of the topics that the Cardinals are going to have to talk about at the Conclave. Well, how willing would a hypothetical Schneider papacy be willing to use autocratic power that is within his means to do so? There has been a remarkable unwillingness to excommunicate heretics for the last 60 years.
And many people want Cardinal Sarah to walk out on that balcony. If Cardinal Sarah walk on that balcony, I don't think he would fire Fernandez. I doubt it. Do you?
Short of a pope who will come in and just tear down and cut out the rot with a chainsaw, then I want a mask off pope. I want a McElroy. Give me McElroy. Put him on the front of Peter.
You want clarity and contrast.
Absolutely. I want an unequivocal. My worst nightmare pick would either be the McElroy Supich or...
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
And LifeSite News reports Australian bishop allows obscene Hindu demonic idol in a cathedral. It's like the Pachamama thing. It's that bad. An Australian cathedral will be hosting an obscene art exhibit that features a Hindu idol. With the bishop's approval beginning this week, the Transcendence exhibit, part of the Wands series of exhibits, features a Hindu deity with 5 wands representing a tarot card. With Bishop Shane McKinley's permission, the exhibit is scheduled to be on display at the Bendigo Sacred Heart Cathedral for the next 3 months. The first commandment forbids the honoring of any gods other than the one true God, who has revealed himself to mankind per the Catechism of the Catholic Church and natural law, by the way. A petition urging the bishop to remove the demonic idol from the cathedral currently only has 700 signatures. You'd think it'd have 1.5 billion, but it only has 700. Let that sink in. This is the problem, and those are your headline news. Boy, that angered me. Anyway, praise be to God in all things. We have our good friend of the show, Dr. Anthony Stine from returntotradition.org, returntotradition.org, linking to it in the show notes for you today. Dr. Stein, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on again. It's always fun to be with you guys.
Yeah, boy. I mean, it's... okay, so you're not... I just want to start with this Hindu story because it is such an infuriating thing.
I have that on my channel today, too.
So you're not a trad bishop. So you're not like a super orthodox, like faithful, courageous. You're no Bishop Schneider. Fine, fair enough. But in what world do you go, yeah, let's let a demonic pagan idol hang out in our cathedral for 3 months? I can't see it. I mean, I can't see it under any circumstances. And yet over and over and over, they always surprise me. Why? Why, Dr. Stein?
Well, it's part and parcel of this synodal church. You know, what I think is going to be one of the topics that the Cardinals are going to have to talk about at the Conclave. And many people will probably assume that they'll toss the thing out the window. Hopefully that's the case, but synodality is about devolution, decentralization, and the bishops. If you are a student of recent ecclesiological history, the history of the church, you know the bishops have wanted decentralization of authority from Rome since at least Vatican II. There was a big push for it at Vatican II. Paul VI managed to stop the worst of it. And part of synodality is, of course, ecumenical dialogue and understanding that, to quote the recently departed pontiff, God wills a diversity of religions. It's all there.
Yeah. This has got to end.
You know, I mean, Pope Francis told, I believe it was a young Muslim, that they didn't need to convert. They just needed to focus on being the best Muslim they can be.
The best Muslim they can be. You know.
Right. So in that kind of logic, you can then look at the more liberal branch of Hinduism, because every major religion has its orthodox and its more lax or liberal branch. And you would go, well, you're pretty good people. You're good. You'll be okay. Jesus rewards good people.
And if I'm not mistaken, Jesus is one in their pantheon, right? Like I think I talked to a Hindu guy who converted from Hinduism to Catholicism, and I want to say he told me that they have no issue with Jesus because he's just one of many.
Yeah, I personally, for some reason, find it more offensive to reduce God to just to reduce Jesus to just another God in a pantheon than to deny him outright. For whatever reason, it just bothers me more than, because maybe we are just so used to people who deny Christ that it's almost passé to the point where young people, are taking theism of all kinds more seriously, because being an atheist is like almost the norm right now. So it's an act of rebellion. I see that what you see going on there, and you see going on in other places too right now. There is no shepherd, so what will happen? The auxiliary shepherds, the bishops, essentially, they're going to run wild in places where they're inclined to do so. Out of Germany, we had the story, of the gay blessings, and you read the document. It's definitely not what Fiducius Supplicans. It's what Fiducius Supplicans probably intended, but did not make clear, so it gave people wiggle room. There's not ambiguity here. And out of Germany now is the announcement from the bishops that they intend to pursue married priests. Why are people shocked by this? Chaos is here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I find it fascinating that once Pope Francis dies, God rest his soul, the bishops in Germany are coming out with that. Now we're ready to come out with our version of implementing Fiducia Supplicans. And then the Opus Dei, of course, they're like, oh, well, there's no reason to continue on with this getting rid of our bishop thing that Pope Francis wanted. Instead, we'll just hold off on that and see how things go. And then, it's just like there's this steady news feed about how bishops all over the world are like taking advantage of this because, His Holiness has died. Now we're in the interregnum period, and I guess they can get away with it, I suppose. Do you think if we got a strong, do you think if we got a strong bishop stepping out on the loggia, let's just, for the sake of the conversation, say it's Schneider, just for the sake of the conversation, do you think that's would? My
dream pick. Okay.
Do you think he would? Do you think he would be able to pull all of these reins back? Do you think he could pull it all back, even under the best of circumstances?
How willing would a hypothetical Schneider papacy be willing to use autocratic power that is within his means to do so? There has been a remarkable unwillingness to excommunicate heretics for the last 60 years.
Exactly.
I like Wakeland has definitely earned it. Mahoney, you got all these guys running around. So if they're not willing to use the power that they have, the way Francis was willing to use power to crush religious organizations and things, then this is why I am one of those who doesn't, I don't spend any time thinking about, oh, it could be this guy or this guy or this guy. Unless they are willing to come in and risk alienating the College of Cardinals after they get in, unless they're willing to risk earning a lot of negative feelings from the laity by excommunicating middling bishops or removing them from their offices, for kicking James Martin out of the priesthood, for seriously taking a look at suppressing the Jesuits again. Unless they're willing to do those things, I don't see how a moderate pope is going to do things. This is why I think the most dangerous thing that could happen would be a managerial pope, a moderate who doesn't call people rigid and all this stuff, who settles things down and then says, oh, but we're not going to really get rid of the problem element either. We're just going to not do controversial things. Do you want to be on here a year from now going, when is Pope X going to get rid of Cardinal Fernandez? Why hasn't he gotten rid of him yet? Why is James Martin out there doing his book tour and working with outreach publicly and not getting silenced? Why is all this happening? Why did this bishop get rid of these traditional nuns and not get into trouble from Rome? Why? Meanwhile, the new pope goes out there and shakes hands, does smiles, and says generally Catholic things in his homilies, but doesn't do anything. The church is in crisis, and a moderate approach is not going to solve the crisis. And has been in crisis for 60 years.
There was a day, though. There was a day back in the day when bad bishops would be exiled. Good bishops would be exiled too, because bad bishops would be in charge and the pendulum swung back and forth. But the practice was you would you would not allow the guy to stay in office. You would not allow him to continue to influence the daily life of the diocese, the Catholics at large. But that has shifted in modern times, the last 1,000 years. Now they don't get rid of the bad apples. They promote them. They keep them around. I've never understood that. Father Charles Murr has tried to explain it to me several times, and I could never wrap my head around that. But you're right. That is the order of the day. If Cardinal Sarah, and many people want Cardinal Sarah to walk out on that balcony. If Cardinal Sarah to walk on that balcony, I don't think he would fire Fernandez. I doubt it. Do you?
You're seeing pushback now against the people hoping it's Cardinal Sarah. Aside from the fact that he turns 80 in 2 months, which means he's unlikely to be chosen just on that ground alone. And
you think so? I think the opposite. I think they're going to want an old guy because that way his pontificate is short.
Sure. Do they want an old guy who said he'd end the practice of married priests in the East if he had the ability to do so?
Probably not.
You think? Yeah, probably not. He's publicly said that. So I'm just saying. I would love to be wrong about that but it's probably not going to be him. But wasn't even conservative on some things, sure, but he's conservative in that post-Vatican II way. He's a hermeneutic of continuity, Ratzingerian type, which means he's frankly a moderate. That's unpopular.
But that makes them a choice. That makes them a reasonable choice then, right?
Sure, but Cardinal, I've got it from trustworthy sources who are well connected to the church in Italy that Cardinal Zuppi is considered a moderate in Italy. So
that's scary.
Again, these labels don't mean all that much. That is scary. That should tell you this about the state of the church in Italy and how good we have it in the United States by comparison.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping for is either Pius XIII type Pope. Don't watch that show. I have seen it. Don't watch it. There's definitely enough impurity that you would need a VidAngel cut of it if you could find something like that. But don't watch it. Clips are fine, but don't watch the show. But short of a Pope who will come in and just tear down and cut out the rot with a chainsaw, then I want a mask off Pope. I want a McElroy. Give me McElroy. Put him on the front of Peter.
You want clarity and contrast.
Absolutely. I want it unequivocal. I want these guys getting up there talking about the new synodal church and how we need to move on and become relevant and all that stuff in such naked terms that people realize that something has gone horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. I'd rather he be a little older than McElroy, though, so we have to deal with it for very long, like Supich. McElroy's 70. Supich is 75, 76. Supich is 76 years old. I'd rather have that because not to be ghoulish, but if I have to say who's going to be around longer, it's not, if I have to choose my poison, I'm going to choose a guy who's not going to be around as long. Because I want more people to wake up, including a lot of those bishops who just keep their head down instead of addressing the problems.
We're
going to be unpopular. I want that or the radical traditionalist. Those are my options.
Those are your options. What is your worst case? You said Schneider's your absolute dream pick, but what would be your worst case? What would be your worst nightmare pick?
My worst nightmare pick would either be the McElroy Supich, or have you seen the footage of Tagle going around the internet?
I played at the beginning of the hour.
Imagine in a bar. I think it's in a bar. He's sitting there on stage in layman's clothes singing Imagine by John Lennon. Imagine there's no heaven out of the mouths of a cardinal who's considered Papa Bilo.
I played at the top. I'll play it again on the other side of the break just to remind everybody. And there are caveats to it. I'll be fair.
Because you want more, and I want to give it to you. I'm rolling out a brand new membership program for the insiders of this channel. Join today. There's something for everyone. And because you could help me fund the next documentary film, the next book project, audio drama, audio narrations, and other projects that I have been dreaming to work on, but simply don't have the resources to accomplish. You and I together can do amazing things. You want more, and I want to give it to you.
Cardinal Tagle singing Imagine. Now, the song version he sang didn't include some of the more blasphemous, heretical nonsense indicative of John Lennon and the Beatles. But nonetheless, and oh yes, of course, I know he's a karaoke nut there. I mean, it's like the number one sport in Asia is karaoke. I get it. Why isn't he wearing his cassock one more time? Just remind me one more time why he's not dressed in according to his state in life, his office. I don't know, but it's just cringe. Dr. Anthony Stine, welcome back to the show. It's just one more video of Cardinal Tagle being somewhat cringe on the internet. I feel bad for the guy.
Would it be okay for me to come on and do karaoke of like some 80s death metal song, which has the most problematic segments of the song lifted out, or are we beyond silliness like that? Because John Lennon was a character. Okay.
Well, to say the least.
The Beatles were the most dangerous boy band in all of history because of their influence they had and because of the things they did. And it's not a Beatles song, but John Lennon took that with him right into his solo career. The other Beatles members all mellowed out after that band broke up. You ever notice that? Like, no one talks about how dangerous Paul McCartney's solo career was or George Harrison's solo music was. But John Lennon, he was like the zero patient for a cultural rot that took off. And it's not so much because of rock and roll, but because of the things he said and the things he did.
You remember their connection to Aleister McCrowley?
Oh yeah. He's on the cover of the Sgt. Pepper's album.
Right.
There's a big crowd of people on that cover, and he's there in the middle of it. Let me put it this way. The Beatles were big fans. 15, 20 years later, Ozzy Osbourne did a song called Mr. Crowley, where he says, Mr. Crowley, what went wrong in your head? Right? To paraphrase him, where he's literally calling the man insane. And so when Ozzy Osbourne has a firmer grip on reality than John Lennon, there's a problem there. Okay?
That's saying something right there. When Ozzy Osbourne is the brightest bulb in the room, you know you've got big problems. That's a sign of the times right there. Hey,
I don't mean to insult Ozzy. He seems like he's mellowed out in his old age, but man,
people say Tagle is papabile. I don't believe that. I'm not putting anything into it. I don't think he could get the vote. Do you?
I am trying to shy away from participating in this clickbait thing that I'm seeing a lot of people doing now, which is let's do profiles in each one of these guys, or let's give you who I think is going to be Pope. The word out of Europe is those who actually know what they're talking about with this stuff are perplexed that a lot of Catholic commentators in the United States are applying an American political lens to this and treating it like a horse race. About the only thing we're missing is a race to 270 map on the wall. And somebody made a meme out of that already. Okay. The only things we really know about what happens in a conclave is that because people have done the research and found out that, yes, they talk about geopolitical issues and they talk about the state of the church. In fact, they just had Zenit reported a couple days ago on the pre-conclave meetings. 113 of the cardinals were there. And one of the things they talked about was the state of the church and the state of the world and the relationship of the church in its current state to the world. So we know these things factor in, but that's it.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah. We don't know if the cardinals are really wanting a more mild-mannered version of Francis. And this gets to what do the people in Rome have to say? Well, some of the sources in Rome seem to say that there was a sigh of relief after Pope Francis died. But the people in the Roman Curia that it occurred to me that might mean that Francis was known as an autocratic manager and that anybody's likely to come in after him, regardless of whatever they believe, who's probably going to know how to manage things in a way that respects the managerial class of Rome better. That doesn't mean it's going to, you might get somebody who is continuing his work, who is just better at managing the underlings. So that could cause them to breathe a sigh of relief.
So are you saying right now in this interregnum period, the staff at the Vatican, the average ordinary worker, are you saying relief?
Oh yeah. I mean, you see it expressed in some of the bishops, including Farrell. Cardinal Farrell was out there wearing ornate vestments for one of his public masses. Things that everybody pointed out you haven't seen out of the Vatican in 12 years. Wow. Just because people like the trappings of tradition does not necessarily make them orthodox. Cardinal Kevin Farrell is not exactly known as a strident defender of all things capital T tradition.
Yeah, we talked
and yet
about
he was out there
this week,
dressed to the nines. He would have fit in perfectly standing next to Cardinal Burke the way he was dressed. That doesn't mean anything. Right. I mean, again, Cardinal Zuppi is considered, by Italian standards, moderate to conservative. Because he prays a traditional breviary and he's not overly hostile to the traditional form of the Mass.
Okay.
But he is on the same page with Francis on everything else.
So we talked about your dream pick, and we've talked about your nightmare pick. Where's the middle ground? Who do you see the middle ground?
Probably somebody older who could manage things for, basically, think of a John the 23rd kind of situation again.
Mm-hmm.
John the 23rd mindset was very liberal. No, it didn't. And one of the things that has increasingly confounded me, I respect the man because of the changes in his position in the last decade or so. But those who've been around a long time and who pay attention know that Cardinal Mueller is not a traditionalist. He's a moderate to a moderately conservative person. Something snapped that caused him to critique this past papacy. But he was not a traditionalist by any stretch.
And he also kind of went along with
traditionally minded to want him. James Martin.
Mueller went along with the process. Like, even though he was critical of it, he didn't resist it in any way.
Yeah. He said some weird things theologically in his past, but they're far enough in his past that I don't know if he's corrected them or not, so I don't tend to bring them up directly. But I would not be shocked if it was somebody like that. And then people would be like, oh, we're saved.
I was thinking the same thing. Mueller could be a serious contender as a compromise for all parties interested. I think he plays enough for all parties that they might be like, okay, that's our guy. They know he plays along. The more conservative trad crowd would be like, hey, we kind of like this guy. And then the other side's like, well, but he plays along. He doesn't rock the boat all that much. So there you go. And he's European. And he's European. And that's the biggest voting bloc. The real question is, though, do they want another German? They just had one. Maybe they didn't like the last German.
Well, the other thing is, it's one of those things you hear from people who know that anybody who critiques a sitting pontiff in the hierarchy has their chances of being made pope go down dramatically. So who knows? I mean, that immediately eliminates all the bishops and cardinals who are generally on more or less on our side of things. The ones that we would much rather have running the church than we had recently.
Who's the we're going to run out of time here. Who's the curveball? Who's the surprise? When in 2013, when Bergoglio stepped out on the loggia, I didn't know who that was. I had to look that up. Is there a curveball surprise that you might want to bring to our awareness?
I mean, other than most of the people that are just unknown in general, I always joked about Hollerich becoming pope. You can find somebody on the other side who would be the equivalent of a Hollerich, in terms of their people kind of know who they are. Again, Hollerich would be a mask off kind of person, but it's just not as known. Mario Gresh comes up also. He's just as bad. He and Hollerich ran the synod on synodality.
I think it might be another sleeper.
Like I use the phrase the new synodal church to give you an idea.
It could be another sleeper, another quiet cardinal hiding in the wings that's going to come out and be like, who is that? I have to look that one up.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.